What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Zach and Pat Show. I'm Zach.
I'm Pat.
This is the show about manhood, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and the mentality it takes to be successful at those things. And we'll probably sprinkle in some helpful real estate advice too, because that's what Pat and I do. You know, guys, life can be tough. We can go through some things and struggle at times, but this is the show to let you know that you're not alone. So if you're someone out there going through any of these things, this is the show for you. We have a very special guest in studio today. He is a partner at the Sage Group, a co-founder of Fortis Insurance Brokers, partnership with, that's his real estate company, the great and powerful Matt Skarin.
Welcome,
to the
sir.
show.
Thanks, guys.
Hopefully I pronounced all that right. If not,
Awesome job.
got a lot here, man.
Yeah.
You quite the resume. But you've built companies, advised founders, played rugby at a high level. If I asked your kids what you actually do, what would they say? And would they be right?
Oh man, I would say the 16-year-old would say, "I don't know, I don't quite know," and he would be right. So that's fair. The 4-year-old would say, "I'm dad," and she would be right, and my 5-month-old would probably try and bite you or something. So, all the above.
Yeah, I got a text from my wife in between a few minutes ago. She's like, "Yeah, our oldest just bit our youngest." I'm like, yeah. We're going through a biting phase, and it's a problem. Yeah, it's figure out how
It
to
fades.
nip that in the butt, because that's a problem.
I think the title is dad, right?
Yeah.
So that's dad's dad, and try and go from there.
Yeah, man. Well, for the people out there that don't know you, Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself for the people out there that don't know you.
Oh man, yeah, I'm Matt. I had a fun resume as I've grown up, and had some really cool opportunities, met some phenomenal people. I've been a lifelong learner, so I pursue wisdom. And so as a result, I've gotten in the room with some just wonderful, wonderful wisdom, wonderful people. It's kind of the currency that we try and grow from. So right relationships, right people, right wisdom, and try and do it in a way that honors, myself, my family, God, across the board. So, I would say that's the high level. The down and dirty is I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a ADHD entrepreneur, trying to do that with a purpose to create and build some legacy for people, and equally as important, if not more important, help other people do the same thing for themselves, so that we can positively impact the world around us. So what that looks like on a day-to-day is subjective.
Yeah. So when you say you're a ADHD entrepreneur, what exactly does that mean?
Well, that's a great question. I think most entrepreneurs at some point understand that they don't necessarily fit in the box of mainstream, of norm. And I think I found that out pretty early. I was a decent employee. I was better at kind of running at my own pace. And so ultimately, I don't think I knew that out of the gate. I think there was some level of ADHD at some point, as most of us have, or a lot of the ADHD entrepreneurs have. But I think through some experiences, I was allowed to chart my own course. I've always kind of charted my own course in some capacity. But what I found was the framework and the structure needed for successful ADHD entrepreneurism is critical. A lot of us talk about the shiny object syndrome. A lot of us talk about, chasing these different paths, these things that open up, and really what I've found was necessary for me was putting some structure in place so that it allowed the freedom to operate, but that freedom to operate was still focused on building towards what, I had committed to myself, whatever the strategic action plan was created at the time. So, it's not a ADHD entrepreneurism is such a unique beast. If you guys think about the entrepreneurs in your life who have done it well, and the people who are, I heard a term, there's entrepreneurs and there's wantrepreneurs, people who are trying, but always seem to get in their own way. And I think I'm probably a case in point of I failed a lot at it. So I'm starting to get it right a lot more often. So
Good learning experiences, though, for sure.
A ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what were you doing before you got into entrepreneurship?
Well, I would say I was always probably an entrepreneur in some capacity. I sold airheads at school when I was in middle school. I was mowing lawns and umpiring and doing all kinds of jobs when I was still in high school. When I started going to school, I went to University of Missouri. I was working with some at-risk youth, so I paid my way through school. My junior year, I had a kid. So sophomore year, I found out I was going to be a dad, working with kids that primarily didn't have good father role models in their life, and pretty real check at the time. So left school, started working. Very first job was door knocking for life insurance in North St. Louis City.
Yikes.
I had dropped out of school at that point, and so we fast forward. I had started a farmer's agency a couple years later, was going back to school full time, and became a single dad. And so the entrepreneurship was always there. I think the luxury and the opportunity to pursue it was probably overshadowed by responsibilities. So kind of took a path on the insurance journey through the corporate side. So went to large firms and got to cut my teeth. And that was really where I started seeing great leaders in a business setting. And so I said, well, let's learn, let's grow from them and ultimately serve these guys. I was doing risk management, but because it was networked, I had a lot of M&A exposure, mergers and acquisition exposure for the companies that we were working with. The best in class were leading their people well, and they were growing well organically. And then they said, we want to grow fast enough, so we have to do some inorganic growth. So, really started out bird dogging in that space, moved firms, met my wife, I think over 10 years ago, but she, us and the stability and the partnership that we have kind of paved the foundation for some security to say it's time to kind of get back in there. So COVID hit a couple years ago. I think you guys remember COVID.
Sure do. Yeah, I remember.
So COVID hit, and I had a pretty nice job offer on the board, and looked at my wife and had kind of gut check time and said, everybody's going right, world's going left. We don't know, we don't know what this is going to look like, but if we can do it now, we can do it at any point. So turned down like I said, a pretty lucrative job offer, really with the understanding of in 4 years, 5 years, I don't want to look back and have my biggest regret be, I wish I would have started it sooner. I also knew enough about myself that I needed some frameworks. So I started having some decent focus, but I also, you guys understand, you guys are working for yourselves. There's kind of when you jump off that cliff, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And there's so much that you learn in that journey, but it's just on the other side of fear. So you have to jump off first. So, so I took the step off. The fun part was, I think it was 2020, June 15th, I stepped out of my job. Great people there. Good culture, good everything, but it stepped out. 7/1 was when I officially hung my banner, and 6/29, my wife says, guess what? We got a kid on the way. So,
oh shit.
Yeah. So nothing like, being in the fire. And that was something.
So what was the first business there?
Yeah, good question. Sorry. So the first business was insurance brokerage. Okay. So really designed to serve business owners, personal lines, and I also wanted to learn real estate. So I said we're gonna carve this. We're gonna tailor this towards learning and understanding real estate. And that really started about a year later. I met a partner in that business, EJ. We launched we started flipping some houses. He's super talented. He's been in it for quite a while, but I started flipping some houses and understanding what the power of real estate is. Obviously, you guys are pretty well versed. I don't know, you guys know what COVID is. You guys know what real estate is.
I know a thing or two.
Yeah.
We did just sell a house about 30 minutes ago.
30 minutes ago. Well, cheers to you guys.
Yeah.
So, that's awesome. Yeah. So that was the first one. Second one was the real estate side. And then still kind of the consulting side. there was still some M&A and some networking components that came in. So I know for a fact a couple of years ago when I started, I had no idea. I had no idea. I started pursuing some venture capital stuff, seeing that I had a phenomenal opportunity to partner with some amazing people on a startup. It didn't go perfectly, but it was an MBA in and of itself of learning what to do better. At one point there was a 9-figure, 10-figure valuation assigned to it. So pretty cool stuff. Rooms that I don't know that I would have gotten into had I just pursued the normal path, and some leaders and some wisdom that was powerful. So, fast forward, most recently I had been kind of moonlighting. I would say that my Bruce Wayne was the insurance side. I would say my Batman was really helping businesses grow strategically and scale effectively. So the beauty is I found a partner on the insurance side, ended up partnering with that, merging that so that I can kind of be who I am on a more regular basis. And that's really helping people unlock themselves and grow and scale effectively.
That's awesome.
Wow, man.
Well, on this questionnaire, you mentioned flywheel building. What is that?
Yeah. So flywheel, as you guys think about your real estate, you guys have a couple components. You've got the real estate arm, the realtor arm. You've got a ton of network, and you don't have to do everything, but you've got an ecosystem of people and processes that work harmoniously and ideally drive value to the customer and to the owners in place. So, when you look at a business as a whole, you've got people, process, and products. When you factor in the operations and where they're going strategic action plan, you need to put those processes in a more strategic place that allow them to create their own perpetual motion. So a flywheel is really putting that in order so that the operations, the systems and processes work harmoniously with the people to the benefit of all. And then they kind of create their own momentum. And off of that, it's a system built on empowerment, stuff like that. So,
okay. What would you say is probably one of the most misunderstood elements of momentum when it comes to entrepreneurship?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say anybody who thinks it's a straight line is sorely mistaken. I think, when I was in the startup, we talked a lot about what's called anti-fragility, which is ultimately like flexibility, resilience, right? So, Zach, you're a jiu-jitsu guy. If you got somebody who's super stiff, they're going to have a rough day,
right? For sure.
a rough day in it. So
need some piece of flexibility for sure to have any success. Otherwise you're not going to bend, you're going to break.
Yep. And so anti-fragility is really a little bit more intricate than just the flexibility. Anti-fragility is something can be really, really strong, but still fragile. A concrete block, if you drop it from high enough, it's strong, but it'll break, it'll shatter. It's fragile in its own, it's brittle. Anti-fragility is really helping your team be very, very strong, but also be able to grow and evolve when there's challenges that are put in place. So think about us as fathers, think about us as men. We go through challenges, we have a choice, right? That challenge is either going to break us or we're going to get stronger from it. Anti-fragility when it comes to building a team out is how do we put that process in place, that part into our culture so that as we come up with the inevitable challenges, we are stronger and more resilient for it long term. So I would definitely say to the original question, it's not a straight line. You're going to hit bumps in the road. There's going to be challenges. There's opportunity as much as it is a challenge. There's really more opportunity to grow and build from that.
Yeah, you always see those charts and things that people post on social media where it's got like you're climbing the mountain and it drops and then you're back up and drops, and it's just there's, like you said, there's never a straight line. And I think that's where most people tend to give up, or they'll fall back down, but they won't take those steps to get right back up and get back to where they were. And one of the big things about the show is wanting to kind of hopefully reach some of that younger crowd coming out of college and things like that to realize like, hey, you don't have to step into a W-2 job or being an employee. You can lean into the things that you're good at. And I think we've seen a rise. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but I think we've seen a rise of entrepreneurship, honestly, since COVID.
Yeah.
I think it's been, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure that's something that's kind of gone through the roof.
Well, I mean, you got two guys right here that,
Right.
you know, kind of dived into it at COVID. And that's
Right.
really when I got my license like very end of 2019 and like really didn't start getting things off the ground until like March of 2020.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, so to your original point, you know, there's a good chart that I'll share with you guys at some point, but it talks about the entrepreneurship journey as a whole, and you're supposed to, when you plateau, you oftentimes find a struggle on the other side, so you dip a little bit. But that dip is what paves the way. That learning, that dip and that growth is when people learn. That hard time when they're going down is when they learn, and they end up accelerating way faster on the other side. And that is the inevitable growth path of many businesses, and they're going to go through that cycle a couple times. So that's number one. You know, to the point on the new generation of people, I'm you know, this is the first time in history where I think there's been almost 5 generations of workers in the workplace. So, you know, when we were growing up, when we were kind of entering the workforce, we heard how millennials were, you know, this, that, and the other. And now we've got not 1, but 2 generations that are entering the workforce behind us, and the same people that were complaining about us
Or complaining about them
are still, and we are complaining about them too, right?
Yeah.
But now what's on the other side? You've got a generation of people that are highly resilient, highly emotional intelligent, right? So there's more emotional intelligence and ultimately self-awareness in the marketplace right now, which I think both of those end up paving the way to a lot of growth, healthy growth. And then we also have, you know, the strength of the generations that preceded us. So I think this is a phenomenal opportunity. And then to the point of the entrepreneurship, you've got this gig economy. So people who are entrepreneurs, you know, are you entrepreneurs or are you self-employed?
Right.
There's a difference. Yeah. And I think that when you start unpacking that and really understanding how to get that right, the difference between being self-employed or in a gig economy or whatever that is, and truly building a business as an entrepreneur ends up being the mindset that goes into it. How are we gonna put the people in place, the processes in place to be able to grow? It doesn't mean that you have to build a big team to do it successfully. And right now you can do more than ever, more than ever with technology and AI and everything. So, but yeah, I think you've got a lot of self-driven people. And then I think that the big need is how do you kind of help them with process to get them over this gap of self-employment, cross the chasm, if you will, of self-employment to truly entrepreneurship.
And that's kind of what you're leaning into now in terms of the other, like you got stepped aside from the insurance stuff, but you mentioned wanting to jump into helping other people. Is that something that you're doing now? Is working with a lot of young entrepreneurs, doing some coaching with them? And
yeah, so I had said that I started a consulting company. We helped a pretty decent sized $28 million manufacturer sell, brought in an investment bank, had, you know, good experience with that, ended up doing a good job for the client. But there was really something missing. And that was that the entire process was focused around a transaction. So real estate is actually one of the biggest challenges in the marketplace because it's so focused on the transaction. One of the things that you guys see and feel is you guys are able to grow through referrals because you're focused on the people, not just the transaction. Right. And so I think there's a gap in the marketplace on that. So how do we help focus on the people itself? So 2023 helped sell the business. 2024 helped sell the business, closed on it. And again, pursued wisdom, pursued mentorship, I had a mentor, Alan, that connected me to Ron Warman, founder of the Sage Group. And really, you know, I would say we both kind of sniffed each other out as maybe competitors, or, hey, how do we collaborate on some stuff, and really understood, this guy was a little bit different, and then it was a lot a bit different. And And what I saw was, yeah, there's the flywheel's great, but the methodology behind it, the actual methodology to building the flywheel, building the operation is what's critical, because that methodology is what helps people personally, professionally, and organizationally. So yeah, I was not really looking to jump in on anything, and ended up really seeing a peek under the curtain at what was possible with this. So I would say I made the decision pretty early to partner with them in some capacity, and then more recently said let's go in full time and jump in and build this. So as a partner, it's been pretty powerful to see the evolution of myself through my own what's called Path to Value, and really see the process of being able to help as many people as possible. So
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool.
Very cool. Well, what was one time you came face to face with fear, whether it was business, parenting, on the rugby pitch? What did it teach you about yourself?
It's a good question. I would say fear is a tool, right? Fear can be way more than a tool if you let it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that fear is a catalyst. It means that I'm on the edge of something, right? And that's typically where a lot of the growth occurs. I've got a good mentor. His statement is, fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. And so really there's a lot of freedom in life on the other side of it. As far as, fear, I would say that probably the best one is, a lot of people are so afraid of failure.
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah. Fear of failure is probably the biggest, when you think about this, younger generation of starting something, or even, it doesn't matter, you don't have to be younger, somebody who's a entrepreneur versus an entrepreneur, right? Or people who are thinking about starting something. Fear of failure is the biggest thing. Fear of failure in a relationship, fear of failure as a father, right? That's the biggest thing. But I think personally, I moved about 4 or 5 years ago. I said, I'm not afraid of failure, because failure is a phenomenal teacher.
Absolutely.
I am afraid of mediocrity. Yep. So I would say that the allowing you to reframe fear in a way that's probably healthy and motivating in and of itself is a good thing. I would say a specific example is, be fearful of taking a step off the cliff with whether you're starting a new business without income, or, I'm, fearful every time I get on the mat with Zach, right? There's some fear in that, but, I think there's another element of fear that's, is there a mindset shift that's holding you back? Am I afraid to give up alcohol for my kids? Every dad here would die for their kid. What are you afraid to live for your family? Are you afraid to live with purpose? Right. And then you kind of look at fear as a whole and failure and how critical that is to actual success. And, I think you've got a recipe in there somewhere if you reframe fear. Well,
I think too is if you've got a fear of failure, that's going to limit you on what you try. That was one of the biggest things with baseball. Baseball's always talking about the mental side of things, the mental toughness, everything's mental. And, if you've got a fear of going out there and giving up runs and giving up hits, you're screwed. That's part of the game. You're going to you're going to sit there, you're going to pitch timid. You're going to anytime you can ask guys I play with, I was fucking mean when I was on the mound. I was like, fuck you. Just mean. And I could run the ball up there pretty high, and fast, but I was never afraid to throw my fastball. Here it is, fucking hit it, I dare you. That was my mentality. If I was afraid to throw my fastball, I had a fear of my fastball getting hit, I would ease up on it. I'd probably miss a spot, and then it would get fucking smoked. Yeah. And so I think that fear of failure can really hold people back, because it's going to limit them on what it is. So it's I think it's hard to be successful if you have a fear of failure. Yeah. I like your fear of mediocrity, because that's huge. I'm definitely afraid to be mediocre. Mm-hmm. I want to be the best at whatever it is that I do. But that fear of failure, if you're fearing that, it's going to limit you and hold you back from taking chances that if you didn't have a fear of failure that you would take.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I've always thought, like, if there's anything that scares me, like, that means it's pretty powerful. And that if I can get through that and conquer that fear or that whatever that's scaring me, if I can get through that, whatever's on the back end is gonna be amazing.
Yeah. Well said. And I would say actually one of the recipes for whatever you define as success, one of my recipes has been I fail faster than most people out there.
Yeah.
Which allows it to iterate and grow and kind of the process itself to evolve. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to go jump, bet all my money on black or whatever at the casino. Right. It just means that the faster I can fail and then not be tied to that success, not have my ego tied to that or some facet of that, I can take the next step. I can learn from it, grow from it, and take the next step. And so, it's almost like a Kobe Bryant mentality where he's already practiced 3 times by the time most people have woken up. If I fail 3 times before you even get off your butt, right,
you're ahead.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, have you heard that analogy between the cow and the buffalo?
The buffalo turns into the storm.
Share
it. You should share it. I like it.
So cows, they can sense a storm's coming. They're going to run from the storm. And usually what happens is they're stuck in the storm for longer than what it would be if you were like the buffalo who sees a storm coming or feels a storm coming and they run through it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to get through it faster by going through the storm than trying to run from it, and the storm just stays with them the entire time.
Yeah. That's so perfect.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, that's the entrepreneur path, right? And not just entrepreneur, fatherhood, motherhood,
everything,
like path, but you think about that, it's the same thing. So the advice to the entrepreneur is turn into a buffalo.
Yeah. Call a buffalo.
Sure. Be a buffalo.
Because guess what? More storms are going to come too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's always storms,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how big or small. It might be a tiny little rainstorm. Might only take 5-10 minutes, but I mean, that's a daily thing.
Yeah.
There's a storm every day.
Yep.
It just depends on how big that storm is and that's, and how you let it affect you. I mean, as you grow and the more comfortable you get, that storm that when you first got in the business that you thought was, a mile long might only be 10 feet now.
Yep.
It might only be a little shower now.
Yep.
Where, and then that big storm is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as you start growing and learning how to push through things and to get through it. Those storms are only going to get bigger. It's just, you're just going to adapt and figure it out.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest part of it. Biggest part of like any sales job or being an entrepreneur or anything like that, like just pushing through that storm and continue to, like you said you're a lifelong learner. I think that's amazing. I mean, we're constantly reading, constantly learning. I mean, I always try and spend at least an hour of day in the morning learning something new, whether it's reading a book or reading through updated guidelines for mortgages, learning new programs, things like that, just so I know that I'm getting better every single day. So,
yeah, as a rule of thumb in life, I feel like if I look back on things, like something scares me, it's like usually something I should move toward. If I look back at anything that I've done in my life that scared me and I ended up going through it, it ended up being the best decision I ever made. Like I was scared to become a dad. Like that's terrifying like, man, I'm responsible for this little kid and like I'm the one who's going to be raising me and my wife are going to be the one raising him, and like I don't want to fuck that up. And if I was getting into real estate was scary, starting jiu-jitsu was scary, like all the things that I look back on my life that scared me, and I'm like so glad that I did move into the storm and and pursue it.
Right. And now you look at your life and you're like, I don't even remember what it was like before.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it scared the shit out of me becoming a single dad. I mean, probably, I don't know about the same for you, but yeah, I mean, that was fucking scary. And I mean, that was a rough, like 2023. So it all started in 22, but 23 was a rough fucking year for me. Really rough. And, like, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And it was just say, you know what? Just get up every day, make your bed. Let's just start with that. And so that's what I did. I was like, all right, bed's made. Now what? All right, let's
What's the next step?
brush my teeth, get ready. All right, I need to get to the gym. Need to do this. Got to make these calls. Got to do this. And just setting those non-negotiables, things that I have to do every single day. And then there's different days that have different non-negotiables, but those things have to get done. It's not a complete day if I don't get those done.
Yeah.
So.
No doubt. I mean, showing up is 90% of the battle, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The hardest part of going to the gym is getting in your car and going. once you're there, it's easy.
It's easy from there.
I mean, we shouldn't say easy, but it's it's simple. Let's say that it's simple, not easy. I think there's a lot of things in life that are simple but not easy. But I think those are the most rewarding things. But
well, from where you started to where you are now, how has the definition of success changed?
Good question. I think the definition of success has been more tied to legacy as I've been in this journey. I would say it's grown in a couple ways. Number one, you got to learn to remove your ego. That's a daily journey. So I think tying success to ego is comparing bank accounts, comparing whatever it is. Really. So if I go back, and I still get reminded of this on social media, but I had tied my early definition for success. I said, I'm going to turn the lights on and off every day. I'm going to track how many days. That was one of the KPIs. I was going to track the number of hours that I spent in the office. I didn't really think about what that did for my family. I just said, I'm going to put the work in, right? I wasn't afraid. I didn't really think about how optimized that work was. I didn't really think about how focused that work was, but I said, I'm going to outwork everybody from an amount of hours, right? Don't think I tracked how much time I spent on Facebook or whatever it was,
right,
but, so I think I saw that. And then there was a stretch, where I was at a networking event. It was a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I was out the door before 5:00. I didn't get home till 10:00, 11:00. I had a networking event that night. I had a networking event the morning. I worked the whole day. Didn't see my daughter, didn't see my wife. The next morning I was out again. 6 o'clock, before 6:00, I was out. And that night there was a big networking event. I don't think I got home till 2:00. And I was at a cigar lounge at the Ritz, and I remember being around people, and I was like, man, these people don't really care about me. Mm-hmm. This is not number one. There's not really much healthy work getting done. It's fine. There's a bit of a there's a bit of a posturing that's going on. But I remember looking in the mirror and being like, man, I just miss my family. Like, this is crazy. These people don't care. They don't care about my family. It's not that they're bad people. It's just they're in their own zone. It's 2:00, and
they care about what they care about.
And then that Friday I had another early morning meeting. So I was out. So I don't think I saw my family for almost 72 hours. Oh. And then I was exhausted and I wasn't there. And my wife had, full responsibility. And I was like, this isn't success. This isn't what I signed up for. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to put the work in. It just means that, success is, success. I think what I learned to understand is success is freedom. And there's 4 freedoms: freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationship, freedom of purpose. That's a Dan Sullivan book. And so I think what I had started was, I'm going to focus on freedom of time and money, right? I'm going to be really good at, I can do whatever I want. I can say no, right? Freedom of time, freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationship, freedom of purpose. And I started working through at that process. Let me go make the money so I can kind of step back from work, and then I can kind of work who I want to work with, and then I can figure that out. But what I saw was there are so many people who compromise on that last step. And there's so many people who say, I'm going to wait till I retire to really make a difference, to make a purpose. And they just don't, they're late to the game to understand that. As I worked with the startup, I really started to unpack purpose at a core level, and then also what purpose meant for me. And ultimately what I saw is I want to create flywheels that help other people create impact on the world around them. Right. So not through me, right? Not because of me, but because we help put a system of empowerment in place with the people that we work with so that they can impact as many people aligned to their purpose as possible. And so, at the back end of that, as that kind of wound down, or it took a different direction, we had a rocky 2024 from a personal standpoint. I really came away with why am I going to wait till I'm retired to focus on purpose? So now, armed with kind of this realization or success in this case, this understanding of success for me, I think I started pursuing a redefinition of, well, I don't want to wait till I'm 65 to go understand purpose. I want to go understand that critically at my level, what I'm gifted in, and then reverse engineer it, because the time and money will come, right? And if you're focusing on doing that with the people, the freedom of relationship with people you care about, you're not really working at that point, right? You're just kind of helping empower and having fun while you do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just had a call with my business coach a couple days ago, and we were talking about something very similar about, this year has been different than most years in terms of, my success rate in converting calls with new agents into meetings, and then meetings into new relationships and things like that. And it's been really tough. And he's just like, Pat, you got to remember, it's been, you've seen the biggest drop of licensed loan officers as well as licensed agents. So the people that are left are very, very good at what they do. And same thing, these agents are very successful. So they have their relationships. So you just have to remember, he's like, and we had that conversation. I was just telling him that, but then I was like, he's like, so what have you been doing? I was like, well, one, I've just really continued to focus on my why, why I do what I do. But then I've really been diving deep into my core values and like, what's most important to me? Like, what are my core values? And I wrote them out. I read them every day, read my why every day, write it out. My why's evolved so much since I started writing it out. Like, you just keep tweaking it, adding it. It just gets better and better. But like, that's my biggest focus now is like, how can I read my core values and my why in the morning, and like, how can I pursue throughout the day those core values that pertain to my why? And it's been a big shift for me. And it's just, I feel like, I don't know, just feel way, like, I don't feel the stress. Like, I don't feel like, I know that if I go through my day and I've done the things that meet my core values and my why, whether it's like, hey, things might not have worked out, but I know that I've maintained my integrity through this. I've maintained my work ethic, and I'm doing it, and I'm able to show my kids like what that means, and they're learning from it. I mean, I sit down and talk to them all the time about it, like, hey, what do you know what core value means? Like, stuff like that. And it's something that's been my biggest thing for me. That's success for me, is making sure my kids understand what core values are, have their own core values. I mean, obviously, as parents, we're going to have an influence on that, but that's been my biggest shift with everything is, how can I teach my sons what the meaning of core values, what their core values are, and how can I show them by what I do for a living as a why? Mm-hmm. And that's been my biggest shift forever. I mean, do you guys have your core values? Do you guys write them down? Do you guys think about that stuff? Or
I'll be honest, I don't. And I used to journal and stuff a lot more than I do now. And I need to get back to that, because it's like it's something that I felt so good about it when I was doing it, and then I just kind of fell off the habit of it, and then I haven't been doing it over like the last 5-6 months, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, what I've started doing is at the end of every night, like, I've got it in a text message to myself, and I'll just resend my core values and my why to myself, and I won't look at that text until the next morning. So when I look up, there's that notification.
Smart.
Because I
like that.
Try not to look at my phone first thing in the morning, but let's be real. Like, everybody's like, oh no, I don't look at my phone. I'm like, fuck that. I look at my phone all the time.
That's how I answer my,
it's my alarm clock and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'll go through and I'll do the things that I need to do real quick, make the bed, brush the teeth, all that stuff. But, my business never sleeps. Our business never sleeps. So, I'm checking emails and I'm looking at that stuff, and it's like right there. It's easy to remember. It's easy to see. And you know what? Hey, let's refresh on the core values. How can I apply those today for myself, my job, and how is this going to be able to correlate and teach my kids?
Yeah. One of the things that that any business that's really trying to make that pivot needs to have a mission, vision, values, right. Core values across the board. I had a good friend of mine that shared a page that I really adopted and created for myself. So it's got my family core values. It's got my family mission statement, my own personal mission statement. It's got goals, and here's what I got to do every day. And I reassess it every quarter. I fill it out every day. And it's a very powerful reminder, and it's kind of a cross between the core value and the journaling process. And so now you're also tracking, kind of SMART goals towards what you're working with. So the answer is, yeah, I love that. And then being able to share that and instill that in our kids and the people around us, that's, that would be a huge part of legacy. Right. And so, it's, it's simple. It's not easy. Right.
Yeah,
but, I would say it's, if you haven't, for anybody who hasn't, do it.
I highly recommend it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed a shift in my kids since I've started doing it. I mean, like the coolest thing, like pig roast this past weekend, like how, like just being able to let the kids go and do their own thing, but then like looking over and then watching them sitting at a table with adults and just carrying on with adults. I'm like, man, that's fucking cool. Like I'm doing something right, I guess. So,
yeah. And really, as we tie this back into fatherhood, manhood, and humanhood, one of the core values that I have is grace is sufficient. Right. So there's the Bible verse, my grace is sufficient, for my power is made perfect in weakness, is a very personal thing to me, but it's also a core value. Right. So, you've got to give grace to yourself. You've got to give grace to your kids. It's easy to kind of be the tough dad when it's great, but giving grace to the people around us and especially ourselves is so powerful. So, that I think that core value, that process and kind of understanding that at the core it helps you wake up and get out of bed a little bit easier because your grace is sufficient, right? So that's enough. So now it's done. Now we can get up and go.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. So going back to the you said freedom of it was freedom of relationships, freedom of money, freedom of time, and freedom of purpose, right? Those are the four. How would you say the freedom of purpose relates to ego?
Well, that's another great question. I would say that ego is probably the biggest limiting factor to your impact on your purpose. That being said, if your purpose is just to have the biggest ego following, whatever, I don't know that you're going to end up having a legacy that's behind it. That's a really good question. I think as I have learned to try and strip away the ego, which is, again, simple, not easy, I would say it's allowed me to have a little bit more clarity into what that means. If I'm truly going to operate and build purpose, am I okay with not being the guy? Am I okay with being the empowerment piece or the catalyst or to be led? And so I would say it's necessary for growth, right? Like I think ego doesn't want to go through hard stuff. Mm-hmm. Ego is when stuff's hard, you're yelling at employees or taking it out on the world around you or self-sabotaging or whatever, right? Because you're somehow, your worldview is skewed by your own personal view, right? So I think I think it's a limiting factor on growth.
Is there a particular moment in time or event that's been an ego check for you that's really kind of caused that shift?
I mean, yeah, there's ego checks all the time, I think. I think if you point back to certain aspects of failure, right, there's certainly reasons why stuff fails. I would say a lot of time that can be tied to ego. And I'm talking about more of your catastrophic failures. Why did something not work? Well, I was, significantly more overconfident and I didn't, work, whatever that looks like. So I would say a specific time for ego. Look, I had a kid when I was 20, so that's a pretty big ego check
for sure.
Pretty big ego check. And I think just seeing, I think you can see relationships around you respond to that. Right. So there's not just one, there's a whole catalog, whole portfolio of them. But yeah.
Anytime I step on the mat with Zach, it's a massive ego check.
That's right. That's probably the best one. Is
anytime I do jujitsu, man, and get my ass kicked every single time. There's nothing more of an ego check than that one.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, we need to get back to our regular Tuesday sessions.
Yeah, that's right.
We've been slacking, boys.
Yeah.
Get back to it. So, well, you've helped businesses prepare for exits, and what's the psychological shift that someone needs to go through when they realize they got to let go of their baby?
Well, I think it's their baby, but I think the biggest part is probably they got to let go of a big piece of themselves, right? So, I was able to go through my own exit, and I know this stuff. I think I've taught on this, I've coached on this, I've been a part of this, I've seen the process, and yet I still was like, man, there is a major. There's every emotion you can imagine. Frustration, disappointment, all the scarcity mindset pieces. And then there's also the great one. And I think the people who, are prepared better, understand that they've got to take themselves out of the equation to the best of their ability. This is not who they are. But you take, somebody who's second generation or first generation, but this is who they've been their whole life. This is, in their opinion, this is who they are.
Selling their identity kind of almost.
And I mean, I've even been guilty of it. I've got great friends in my life. I've got great people around me, and yet somehow I always want to talk about business. That a couple of years ago. So it's just this. That's not who you are. But the absence of that, I think, is even more important. Is understanding and identifying who you are is critical to the process. So it's not just your baby. It's more than that. It's your identity. It's your, in some people's cases, their life work on the field. It's your resume of wins and losses on the mound or on the jiu-jitsu mat. So I think understanding kind of self awareness, self reflection is pretty critical to that process. I hope that.
No, that's great. Yeah.
Well, you played high level rugby, and every time I see you up here, you got some sort of rugby shirt on. What are some life lessons or lessons in business that you've learned from rugby?
I mean, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, right? I'm looking at Pat while I say that, but no, I think probably the biggest one is when you don't have it in your tank for yourself, you got to get up and be there for your brother, right? I think that's the number one, right? And take that to fatherhood and beyond, right? You have to learn to play a game for more than yourself. And then you take ego. There's 15 people on the field, right? There's 9 in baseball. There's, it is not about you. And I think I would actually say there's a phenomenal book called Legacy. It's about the New Zealand All Blacks, and it's a business book. But in rugby, you don't have your names on the back of jerseys. You've got 1 through 15, and then the reserves. One of the best quotes that comes out of there is, our job is to leave the jersey that we wear better than when we found it. So it's called legacy for that reason, but you're really part of something bigger than yourself. And so now if I'm looking at it through that frame, am I working harder? Am I putting in the extra reps? Am I humbling myself to learn to also, carry the water, to do all the little things right? So it's a phenomenal book for you guys. But yeah, I would say the brotherhood aspect of that, and it translates way more than rugby, is you're playing for a team for, a lot more than just yourself.
How'd you get into rugby? Is that something you did as a kid, or?
Yeah, no, I was in high school. I played football and I wrestled. And then my JV football coach said, you need to come play rugby. And so, cool. And I was a small guy compared to football. We had a pretty good football team.
Did your high school team have a rugby team?
We did, yeah.
What school was it?
DeSmet.
Okay.
Yep. So I ended up getting into it, and I was a scrappy guy. I was able to kind of hold my own, and I got to play. I think I started my sophomore year. We played varsity. We had a pretty good team across the country, and got to have some exposure from rugby. Played for a Missouri team. Got asked to do some USA stuff, and it was just it was a really cool experience. And then post, I went to Mizzou, played there. Got to I had some minor accolades, and obviously left with a kid pretty quick. And so I came back and I started playing with the St. Louis Bombers, and really found a brotherhood that I was an only child growing up. This was, you're force fed a bunch of brothers, like it or not. So So that was pretty powerful. They became a good family for me. Got into it there, got to kind of have some exposure. I played at the highest level I could here, right? I've got a kid. I'm not going to go anywhere. I got to host a lot of people from overseas, some great Australians, some guys from London, some South Africans, some New Zealanders. So, some good people. And really just got to play at the level that I got to play at. So, we were Division II. We dropped out, I kind of stepped back. And then a couple of years later, we went up to Division I, and I said, well, let's go play at the highest level we can. And, so did that for a couple of years, and then we went on a national championship run, and I worked my way back into the team for that and had some fun. But, I'm in a different spot from the game. These guys are faster and stronger, and it's so much fun to play. But it's also, I don't need to be the guy. I can be part of the team. Yep. So, and also lead in my own capacity, right? I'm not going to be the fastest person on the field. These guys are 12 years, 13 years younger. I don't need to be that. I can be the best person that I can be for the team, for those people. And that's not possible without an ego check somewhere.
Yeah. So you still play now or no?
So I will play with my son. I coach my son's team. So it's been pretty fun to see them grow. And he's just a stud. So,
Awesome.
On the
That's
field,
gotta feel good, right?
off the field, off the field, he's a stud. So, and then he happens to play rugby. So it's pretty cool to see that. So I'll play with him. That's one of my bucket lists is I'll get on the field and get after it with him, probably show him a couple moves. So he knows that dad still got it, but,
Hell
so.
yeah. That's awesome. Love it. What's the dumbest risk you've ever taken?
Well, I mean, I'll go back. I got a kid when I was 20, so I'll take that one.
I'll take that one.
No, I mean, shoot, I've jumped off cliffs. I've skydove. I'm aggressive. If when I'm able to ski, I'm pretty aggressive at that. So, probably some level of risk in that side. Financial risk is, I'm not going to bet at all, but I'm certainly going to back myself, and that can be risky. Risk is a really interesting thing, right? So I come from insurance, so part of the unique perspective that come from is risk management. And so what you learn is it's not that there's no risk; it's how do you de-risk the situation, and then the risk doesn't become failure; it becomes mediocrity. Right. So how do we de-risk as much as we can? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Right.
Mike Tyson.
Yep. But how do you de-risk as much as you can so that, so that by the time you're in it, you're having as much fun as you can. So I look at it like this. I'm going to look at cliffs when I jump off of them, both literally and metaphor. I'm going to make sure it's deep enough. Right. But there's no lack of risk. Nothing's perfect. But you're not jumping off a cliff to say you did it. You got to enjoy the ride down. Otherwise, it's not worth it, right? So, you de-risk and then you jump, and then maybe I can enjoy the ride on the way down. So, yeah.
You talk about legacy and the long-term thinking of it. How, as when you're working with entrepreneurs, how do you, and especially in a world full of urgency and immediate satisfaction, how do you get those entrepreneurs to slow down?
Oh man. So you're hitting right in that sweet spot of the ADHD entrepreneurship, right? The instant gratification is so powerful. And then you parlay that with delayed gratification. I would say slowing down is, Alan would say, when he's listening to this, he'll challenge me. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So you've got to go really, really methodically on the front side so you can earn the right to go a lot faster. And that's, again, we keep saying it, simple, not easy. So kind of understanding, listen, you don't need to go boil the ocean yet, but you kind of have to earn the right to go build your level of efficacy. So you can't do everything. So I would say, listen, be faithful to the things that you're in. And then also part of the thing that you're faithful to is allowing for growth, being conscious of that. But really saying, like, here's the strategic action plan that we agreed to. We're accountable to these actions. Once we show success in these, now we can level up. So there's another quote. I like to quote other people because other people are smarter, but most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and they underestimate what they can do in 5. And so if we hold that in tension with, I am an urgent person. I really think time is the only finite thing that we've got. We've only got so much time. Nothing's promised. So I want to move with urgency. And that's where I would say I've kind of learned to operate in purpose. And so I don't feel like I'm not holding true to myself if I'm going off and doing something else, because I'm just not going to try and go off and do something that's misaligned. And I say that as somebody who's done a lot of that, right? So I would say as I'm coaching and lifting, the people in a different stage, and they're not just early stage entrepreneurs. It's second generation. It's 50-year-old, 60-year-old. There's no shortage of people that want to do other things. It's not that you can't, it's how can this be possible and still, hold you true to what you committed to on growth of this business. So, but I'm also, let's move quickly. So how do you de-risk as much as you can? And then how do you move intentionally and then be able to reassess and reset and go from there?
Fast is smooth, smooth is fast. I love that line.
That's great.
Our CrossFit coach says the same thing.
Yep.
In regards to CrossFit workouts. Rachel says
Yeah.
that. She says that all the time. Well, you're a man of faith. Has there ever been a moment where your faith completely redirected a business decision?
Oh man, I would say faith is such a powerful spot in my journey. I would say for a long time it was probably not the guiding principle in my life, or probably it was stuffed down, and I would say bastardized into some humanistic version of love your neighbors, you love yourself. Great, I'll do that. Kind of can't always do that well and operate in grace if you're not really operating in grace. But has it directed business decisions? 100%. I think, you go back to that freedom of relationship. There have been times where, I mentioned that kind of lucrative job prior to stepping. That was something that my wife and I got really intentional on, prayed on it. And ultimately, there was a leadership gap. There was a trust gap that was there. I think that was just a huge nod in the right direction. I would say that really it comes more with people and understanding, there's a level of discernment that you get at some point. And I would say that discernment has led to doing some things with great people and then not doing some things with people that on the surface looked really great.
Kids are watching this in the future. It's one message you want to leave them with.
Man, you're making me think, guys.
That's what we like to do here.
I would say that if it's a kid, depends on how old they are, but
Let's just say in 30 years they're out of, let's say they're out of college.
Yeah. Young entrepreneurs. I would say that there's really understand who you are, right? So that you can understand your unique gifting. I'm a pretty big proponent, because I've seen the change in my own life of understanding the freedoms and really understanding how to pursue those. I think if you're operating under your own core principles and then aligning it to those freedoms, you're going to have a hard time going fully wrong. But really, pursue wisdom. You don't have it all figured out. You're not going to have it figured out when you're 40 or 50 or 60 or 90. And so, I think that our younger generations probably have a little bit more anxiety than we have just from COVID and all that other fun stuff. But I would say, go get moving, and it's okay to fail.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Love it.
Well, we're not quite there yet. I'm where you're at with the 5-year-old. I got a 5 and 6. What have you seen as a father transitioning from the younger ages to as they're getting older, and now you've got a teenager that's driving, I'm assuming.
Driving.
Yeah. Getting a little bit more freedom. What's that perspective shift been like as a father?
So I hold my little girl, so I've got a 16-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 5-month-old.
Okay.
And so holding them and at the different stages, it's kind of a beautiful, time is moving. My little boy was the same size as my little girl is now at one point. Now he's, taller than me, which is not too hard. Shout out Short Kings,
baby.
Yeah. Well,
Fuck you, Pat.
I think it's been cool to see. I would say with my daughter especially, I've said every age that she's been has been my favorite age. With
4-year-old?
my 4-year-old, yeah. So she's just getting her own personality and growing, and sometimes that personality comes with their favorite letter, favorite 2-letter word, no.
Mm-hmm.
But my son is, I'm super proud of. We're single dad, and he's just, I couldn't be more proud of him. And I'm getting emotional on this one, but
good. We like that.
yeah. So, Father's Day, he wrote me a letter that, I'm not going to share publicly, but it was the words that every father wants to hear. And they were not, hey, you're right. Right. It was, hey, you haven't always been right, but, I see that you love me. I see that you're working, and I'm proud. And so, that was huge, for a 16-year-old to say that, especially, I'll be honest, I was like, this dude wants something somewhere. But yeah, it was powerful. And to say, hey, you've always kind of been my biggest champion. And then I weigh that with the tension that, you're not just a father, you're also a son. And so I think there's more to unpack in that side from my personal experience. But, I would say extremely, extremely blessed to be able to hear that from a 16-year-old and also to rise to that occasion, right? That's not a, hey, job's done. It's you got some validation on this road that's an ultimately really thankless road. Right. Right. And then you're not going to get thanked. Your 4-year-old is you're their world. So there's nothing like that. And then, my 5-month-old is just he's a handful. So super grateful for, a partner in raising kids. And so it's been great. But I would say the fatherhood and the journey as these kids have grown have just been, it is a journey there. You get a bunch of snapshots into some beautiful moments, and hopefully you can help, put your signature that goes beyond just the 50% of DNA that you contribute to this kid, and you can actually instill something in there. So, and guess what? You're going to fail too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, is there a difference between raising little boys and raising little girls?
I mean, I would say I'm not done raising any of them.
Right.
And I don't think you ever are as a parent. But I would say my son is a product of his environment, and in some great ways. And I think my daughter's her own person. So they're all their own people. My daughter is she certainly has no fear. She's yesterday she's running around naked in a yard and just having some fun. So she's basically a Tarzan, but she'll wear a tutu. And so she's fun. My son is pretty, he's 16-year-old. So if he's listening, when he listens, I'm going to make fun of him. He's kind of, cares about everybody's opinion on some stuff. And he's learning to really let go of that. Right. Yeah. So, don't look at me or I'll kill myself type thing. Yeah. Not literally, but, so yeah, it's just, I think they're just journeys, and Lord knows when my daughter's, a little bit older, she's going to have some of those. Sure. Daddy's not always going to be center of her world. So, yeah, I would say that kind of have to be back to the earlier point. You have to be anti-fragile with your kids just as much as anybody else, because they're not out to validate you. Yeah. And I think the other side is, I had to let go of some of my own stuff too. And so what really switched was the decision that I'm not worried about, a dad that I don't have, right? And not got a dad, love my dad, great. But I get to go be a dad. So there's no awards for where you came from or there's no one cares, right? So I get to go be a dad. And then you really understand I'm blessed to be able to do this. So now how do I do that at the highest and best efficacy for these kiddos?
That's awesome.
Beautiful, man. Well, we're kind of on this topic of legacy, and how do you be present as a dad while you have all these other things going on in your life with all these businesses and everything? It's like that's something I personally struggle with, and I think I've gotten a lot better at it. But I always like to ask people like you and people that have families and run businesses at a high level like you do, like what how do you stay present when you're at home?
Well, Adrian, when you're watching, I'm going to ask for that grace that we talked about earlier. So I would say that has probably been one of the biggest challenges that I'm learning. I'm getting better. I think I mentioned as far as presence, from the ADHD entrepreneur side, from the entrepreneur side, whatever that looks like. I think it's really understanding I need to be present. I'm going to frame this up. I'm going to do my best to allow for, at this point, I'm going to turn my phone off, or I'm going to shut down, or I'm going to kind of carve time out that's intentional. Really focusing on, time blocking for the kids so you can do that. My wife and I have a pretty good system that we're working on. Again, is really, if you've got to do these other things, let's just check in with each other so that you can get it done and then go come back to being present. And I would say that's probably number two. But really, I think so what's the cost, right? The cost for us is minimal. How many people need something at 7:00 at night that can't wait till the morning, or what deadlines do you have that if you had prioritized a little bit earlier, you can get off your plate, not at the end of the night. And so I'm saying this as a complete work in progress. But I would also say, what's the cost, right? Our kids, especially when they're younger, at any age, they need presence. They need not playing on your phone and not scrolling, not half checking in. My son needs more intentional hangout dad time. And my wife too. It's not just our kids. It's the people around us. So if you're fractured, attention, you're not really doing the best. And again, please, I'm saying this as a work in progress too.
Me too, brother.
I'm with you. I mean, that was the one thing that the divorce kind of forced me into, because now I've got 50-50 custody of my kids, which, the days I don't have them, I can go balls to the wall and work. But, which allows me then, when I do have them, to hey, I'm picking them up at 4:00. Like, once I pick them up, it's their time.
Yeah. Yep. And I think as I kind of learned my own journey, it's how are you chasing dopamine, right? So that's a huge piece. And I think there's any parent will tell you picking their kid up is going to be way better than any dopamine rush from, crap food or social media or something like that. So
nothing's better than them running, dad, dad.
Best thing in the world.
Yep.
Oh man, this has been awesome having you in here, Matt. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we get you out of here?
Guys, I'm grateful for this. It's been cool to see you guys in your journey, and excited to be in the same ecosystem as you guys. So love it. And, these guys are doing some great work on the real estate side. So make sure when you're ready, you reach out to these fellas and go from there.
Appreciate it.
Well, before we get you out of here, we end the show the same way every time.
Play a little game. Call it the Tombstone game. Here lies Matt. What's it say on your tombstone?
Good question. I mean, I would hope, I'm okay with just father, husband, child of God. Right. So I don't know. I think what I am more hopeful for is that the impact is far beyond whatever's on the tombstone. Right. So, I think that's what matters. But, yeah, I'd be curious what the listeners come up with, or what, maybe even what AI comes up with. Right.
There you go. That's ChatGPT. It knows you enough already.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly,
crazy how much it knows you, man.
Put enough information, it'll tell you for yourself.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button for us yet, please do so. That would help us out a ton. Pat and I have a goal to get to 500 subscribers on YouTube before the end of the year. So help us hit that goal. If you got anything out of this awesome episode with Matt, please share it with a friend. Comment what you thought below. Hit that like button, and we will see you next time.